Today, I'm interviewing Annabella, an admissions expert that will share exactly what top colleges are looking for in their applicants.
College admissions, what they do is they'll think of adjectives that describe the student. Everything is about storytelling.
She has spent over 25 years working on helping students get accepted to schools like Harvard, Yale, Stanford, you name it.
You really have to stand out, whether it's through a passion project. And the more personalized, the more unique it is, the better. Colleges can really see through that.
This is real, brutally honest advice. Not theory, not fluff. So if you're serious about college admissions, you're in the right place. Let's get into it. Hi, Annabella, welcome.
Hi, how are you doing?
Really good, thank you. It's also really nice to have you here. And first of all, you've helped so many students get into top colleges. And for someone meeting you for the first time, how would you sum up what you do and who you are?
I like to see myself as somebody that helps empower students plan for their future. And it's not just about what they're going to study or what college they're going to, but I really help them, because sometimes I help the 9th, 10th, 11th graders. I help them with their curriculum, understanding what it is that they want to study, what kind of environment they want to study. So I empower students to be the best they can be in their future environment as well.
Absolutely. And how does that really connect with college admissions? Like what they do and how, if they end up getting in, how does that connect?
Okay. So in my school, there was always a saying, what you do today determines who you'll be tomorrow. So that connects with college admissions because everything that I support students doing, whether it's improving their resume, doing an academic summer program, an internship, whatever it is, it's really going to help them when we're actually the doing part of the college applications to really shine. And with that, we can improve their chances of getting in.
Yeah, because I've seen a lot of students be really toxic with themselves and go through all of these things that don't really work. So let's say you are applying to college again for the first time, but with all the knowledge that you have, what would you do absolutely differently than what most students do when applying to college?
Okay, so the first thing, and this is one of the main reasons why I do this, is I would understand what the majors entail. Because a little bit about my background, I studied international business, political science, psychology. I got an MBA. And now finally, I realized what I wanted to do. So, and because of that, I studied at Columbia and at Penn. I've studied a lot of education and overall components. So why am I doing this? Because I was in that same situation where I was just going with the flow, jumping around. So we would begin with what are the majors available and what's a good fit for you?
Absolutely. Yeah, I see most students don't really know what they even want to study. They just want to get into an Ivy League or get into a top school. And there's so much fluff and really weird things people say and recommend for this specific topic. So what would you say is the biggest myth most students actually believe in this situation?
I would say the biggest myth is that you have to do everything and absolutely anything. You don't have to. You don't have to take 27 APs and 5 internships and every single summer do an academic program. You don't have to do it all because that can lead to burnout.
Yeah. So what I'm thinking and what most students think when starting to prepare for college admissions is that you have to really stand out. And that's why probably most students actually do a lot of stuff, right?
Mm-hmm. Correct. You really have to stand out. And that could be whether it's through a passion project where you're creating, you have a leadership-based initiative where you're impacting a specific community or something that you really are interested in, that you can stand out with things that you're doing and that you're passionate with. And the more personalized, the more unique it is, the better. Colleges can really see through that.
Yeah, that's also something I've heard, and I really study through other people's applications. And considering that, if you have to stand out and you have to be yourself and all of that different stuff and strategy you have to put into it, what's the first thing, or how do you catch attention of an admissions officer in the first 30 seconds? What do they actually look at when they start reading an application?
So when they start reading an application, it's basically like college admissions. What they do is they'll think of adjectives that describe the student. Maybe it might be, okay, the person wants to study architecture, or maybe it's an international student, or maybe it's a very career-oriented student that has a lot of internship. So everything is about storytelling. So your activities, that's something that will stand out right away. Oh, I see you did an internship, you did this, you have a job, that's important. And also, what does your essay say about you? they can read it really quickly, and that's one of the first things that catches their attention.
So it sounds like it's really just marketing, like being really good at storytelling and selling yourself to the admissions officer.
Yes.
That's kind of how it works.
Yes, it is. This is kind of like branding. It's just like, and I know sometimes it sounds a little bit crazy, but it's like if you were to buy something that you really, really like, what does a package look like? What is the story behind it? So this is what we're looking for here, that we are properly relaying the information to the college, because it's not just that the student's saying, "Hey, I'm a good fit for your college," but the college will also be like, "Okay, do we want this person here? Do they have the traits, the characteristics, the skills to be able to thrive in this environment as well?"
Okay, so let's say you have a really good applicant, right? Because they
Mhm.
look at someone that fits in the college. Let's say you have a really good applicant and they on paper sound pretty good and they have a
Mhm.
really good application, you might say.
Yeah.
What could kill that application? Something that really just is such a red flag that just admissions officers toss the application away.
So things that will kill the application is lack of due diligence. I've seen many applications before having them submitted, but there could be typos, or one is not really following directions, or the essay is just, like the main Common App essay is 650 words. If I see an essay that's 300 words and it's not spectacular or it doesn't look proofread, I'm going to feel like the person just did this in 5 minutes. And that's what the college is going to feel like as well. So it's a lot of work. It's not just let's pull an all-nighter and let's do this quickly, but it takes time.
But at the same time, you don't want to have like a lot of filler in there. So what might happen, and I'm imagining that a student might be thinking or going through this, is that they are writing their essay and it's pretty good, but it's only like 400 words long. And they don't want to fill it more because it'll feel like filler. Like, at what point do you make the difference? Because I really just wouldn't know. At least not me. I'm not an admissions officer,
Correct.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. We never want fluff here. We don't want filler words or sentences. And we don't want this essay to sound as if you're applying to a job that you're saying, like, "Oh, I'm a hardworking, resilient individual," and blah, blah, blah. That's not what they really want. Authenticity. So sometimes I've seen students that they have a great story, but then they don't have much to say. Then it's like, okay, let's weave in something else about your life. What else could we talk about? So it doesn't have to be just one event in your life. We could include other aspects, and then we'll get to like a main essay component.
Yeah. So it's really authenticity.
Yes.
And, I think one of the hardest things to do is actually showing authenticity. You may want to be authentic, but you don't really know how. So through this authenticity and showing that through your application, how exactly do you define or differentiate a standout applicant? What do they do in their application specifically that might show authenticity apart from their grades and their extracurriculars? What do they actually do?
So they really, and especially with the world with ChatGPT and all of that, they really want specifics, because you can easily go into ChatGPT. "Hey, I need a 650-word Common App essay talking about how hard working I am," or whatever. But they really, really want this story where they could be like, "Wow, I have never heard this before." It could look raw. It could be. It's kind of like as if you're talking to your best friend, where you're sharing a secret. That you might be like, "Look, I wasn't comfortable in this situation, but I overcame it." Where you really are showing your emotions. You're not just showing off and saying like, "Oh, I'm the best," but you're saying like, "Look, I went through this," or "This is what happened to me."
So regarding authenticity and talking about their story, most applicants, and this is what I did my first time applying to college,
Mhm.
was that you want to do everything, right? And you might do everything pretty decently. So do you really want, and this is the most classic tip for college admissions ever, but do you really want a well-rounded resume or just have a spike and be really good at just one thing?
Okay, and that's such a great question. I think during the last 5 to 10 years, the word well-rounded has been so pervasive, so ubiquitous. It's all over. It's like everybody wants to feel well-rounded. But so I'm a book hoarder. I love to read. I don't remember where I read this, but this is not my quote. But I read somewhere that if you're so well-rounded, you're just going to roll off the table. So in life, yes, we could really say, okay, I play the piano, I play tennis, I'm passionate about this. Yes, we have different aspects about our life. But if we have too many things, it looks scattered. So that's why it's important to hone in and say, okay, what are my top 4 components about who I am that I really, really want to work on?
Right. So you said top four. So it's not really that good to be perfect at one thing. You still need to
You
have a
still have to have
combination,
it.
right?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I've seen the two sides of the picture. It's well-rounded or one thing. So it's not
Yeah.
really that, right?
No, I wouldn't just say that one approach, because what happens if this is career oriented and maybe the person decides to change their major, or we also want to know different facets of the person's life. And this can be also reflected through the activities. Maybe the person is multicultural and then is part of a multicultural club, but also likes to do photography or dance or a sport or a musical instrument or whatever. So colleges really want to get to know who you are. You don't have to be 50 million things, but at the same time, one is just not one thing in life.
Right. So it's a combination of things. And when you want to really go deep into one of those, because you still have
Mhm.
to do extracurriculars regarding like each one of them, if you really want to show that you did something. So most students, and this is a really big tip that most people hear, and I think it's really good, but I want to hear your opinion. It's regarding a passion project or building a business or a nonprofit or just a really big project. How is that really seen through college admissions? How do college admissions officers see those projects?
So, in terms of a passion project, it's important for you to really show what you're passionate about, what type of community you want to impact, and that it doesn't sound cliche. So, just as an example, many times I tell students in South Florida, don't do the typical beach cleanup if you want to do something business related. Like, let's dive deep even more and see what you're interested in.
So, talking about cliches, would you think nonprofits or other stuff like that are cliche? Could you give me more examples? Because I really want to know.
Not necessarily. It really depends on the story. So if it's a nonprofit, it could work, but it could be very time consuming. So I've had students that have done nonprofit, and mostly it's linked to some type of awareness, whether it's cancer awareness, and then there's a story behind that. Maybe, unfortunately, a family member was impacted, and then with that, we're weaving information into the application. It's not just the typical, oh, I am part of this nonprofit or I founded this nonprofit just because. So it really needs to be a reflection of the person. And in a way, in an ideal world, that the person can continue doing this work while they're in college, that they're not just doing it to apply to college.
Okay, so it has to look like, or you actually have to want to do it after college.
Yes.
So at least you have like a clear career path. Is it something like that?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Now, something I really want to know, and I know this is important, but honestly, you hear that you have to do it, but no one really knows how. So, how do you make, or how do students make, or how should they make their essays unforgettable?
So I think one of the key ingredients here, it's all about details so that the reader can really feel as if the person is part of that event or that anecdote. So when I wrote my essays for Penn and Columbia, one important part of my identity is my multiculturality. So I was talking about foods that I eat at home. So imagine as if the reader is watching a movie about my life. And if they were to peer down at the plate and it's like blurry, they can't really understand what I'm talking about. But if I'm talking about that mouth-watering arepa with the yellow cheese melting and the tiramisu that I put too much chocolate on top that makes you cough in your first bite, they can really, really feel as if they're there. And then they're going to be like, wow, okay, I want to learn more about this person. Consequently, this person's in. That's what they want.
You kind of have to make an experience rather than just tell a story. So, like taking them
Yes.
through it.
Yes. You're grabbing their hand and you're saying, look at this about my life. And look, this tree is maple colored and it's Bordeaux red or whatever it is, that you really are describing everything. And of course, describing what's important to you. You're not just going to describe an organization or another person just because. It's all about that type of connection and why that matters to you.
So, isn't really necessary to do all of that? Like, I understand that this is a really good way to connect with the admissions officer, but is it really necessary to tell a story? Like, do you have to do it?
I would. I really, really would, because in life, it's all about connections. So if we can tell a story, there's a connection between the person, and then the person will really identify with you. They might be like, oh yeah, I've had a tiramisu before and that happened to me, or things like that. Because if we just say, this is what the component of show, don't tell. If I just say, I'm an international person, then I'd be like, okay, whatever. So many people are. But if I explain it in a way that it's like, okay, this matters to me, blah, blah, then we're telling the story. And that's when the impact comes in. That's when they'll remember. If you ask me about my students, okay, which student got into blah, blah, even if it's 20 years ago, I can remember each and every successful essay because it left a mark on me. And that's what we're doing for colleges.
Right. At the end of the day, I mean, admissions officers are still humans, and that's the way we still connect with each other, right?
We still
Because if I
connect,
want
even
to,
though we have ChatGPT and everything, we can still connect with it.
yeah, like if you want to get a point across, or you're talking with a friend, maybe with your parents, whatever, and you want to get a point across something that you've learned, you generally just tell a story. So yeah, you have to remember that they are humans. I mean, at
Yes.
the end of the day, yeah.
Yeah. And it's all about storytelling. It's all about marketing. And remember, try to avoid being controversial. You don't want to come off as I'm against this or this happened that. So at the same time, we have to be diplomatic. We're not going to say, oh, this is about politics or this is what I think, but it's more about like, look, this is who I am. I'm inviting you into my home, into my life, and it needs to be something raw, authentic, and noteworthy.
So you are talking about your students and your case studies. So have you ever seen, with all the students you've had and all of your experience, have you ever seen a student that shouldn't have gotten in, or it was like really unexpected and they actually really made it and got into a really good college or their top choice or something like that? Have you seen that ever?
Yes, I have. I've had students, well, I'm a very optimistic person. So many times I have students that they'll tell me, Annabella, I really want to apply to the school. And I'm never going to say, and I know many schools, I've had students where they tell me, hey, this school said I'm not going to get in, but let's give it a shot. So yeah, sometimes it could be challenging. And in this day and age, it could be very competitive, but it has happened. And most importantly, the student has decided to go to that college and they have really, really thrived. Like they're doing great.
So it is possible for anyone.
Absolutely. Anything is possible. Yes. Yep.
On the other hand, though, I know that this is really competitive. They have less seats than qualified applicants. So at some point, a really good student on paper may get rejected. Have you ever seen that
Yes.
yourself on your students?
I have. Yes, absolutely. Because that's part of life. Sometimes I've had students that they tell me, I want to apply to 4 Ivies and they don't get into all the Ivies, or they want to apply to something that's very, very reach. First of all, I always prepare them. I say, hey, we are balancing this list. We have reach schools, middle schools, safety schools. And then besides that, many times if the student doesn't get in, okay, rejection is redirection. Everything happens for a reason. And then we just find what the best fit is. And then that's why we apply to a combination of colleges. We're not just aiming for one or two or three. We really are building something here.
Yeah, something I really value through the process, because it's still a really, really tough process and it takes a long time. In my opinion, mindset is really important. Maybe even more important than what you actually do, because at least it won't only make you feel better during the process, it actually makes your application stronger sometimes.
Absolutely.
And I do personally think that mindset is really strong. And with what you are saying, that rejection is redirection, if you truly believe that, you won't be upset at all if you get
No.
rejected. So
Correct.
I think that's really important. And that's also nice that you said it, because I want more students out there to actually know this, because it's so important and people really neglect it.
Yeah, absolutely. And everything, there's perfect timing for everything in life. So I think we should always aim for the best. And what I do with students as well, it's like throughout the process, it's how are you feeling? Doing a check-in. Do you feel stressed out about it? How is the process going? What do you need? And then with that, this is kind of like preparing yourself for life. You may apply for a job in the future. You might not get it. That could be the reality. But if we build the skill set and we have plan A, plan B, plan C, we will succeed. That's what we need to do here.
Awesome. So for these specific students, if they are perfect on paper, what's usually the reason that colleges still reject these people?
The real reason that colleges reject first, there's competition. So even though you might feel that you might be the perfect fit, the reality is there might be somebody else with better grades, more AP or rigorous courses and things like that. And then they just might feel that maybe that story or that anecdote or the types of activities, it's not correlated to that specific type of school. So that's why we also need to hone in There are some schools that are very, very like hands-on. So that type of college is looking for internships, whereas others might be more academic and research. So we need more investigation, more papers, more type of rigorous courses.
And does it really depend on the admissions officer, like on the human behind the decision? Does it really
Yes
depend
and
on
no.
them? Yes and no?
Yes and no, because yes, it depends on the actual humans, but it's usually a group. It's not just one person that will say, oh, yes, I like this one. They do convene, they sit down and they'll say, okay, applicant A. Okay, these are the adjectives. This is a number of AP courses, kind of like a whole synopsis. And then with that, they make the decision as a group.
But you still have to make them fight for you in the office
Yeah.
against the other admissions officer. So
Yeah.
it's still really dependent on them, right? Like
Yeah,
maybe
it is.
not.
Yeah. Yeah. You might have in that team somebody that's an advocate for you, that they might say, we loved the activities. We think this would be great. But then, and by the way, there's always somebody skeptical in the group. One might be like, do we really want this person? This person said that they had a failure in this. And then it's a conversation. That's why we have to kind of anticipate, and wherever we are presenting ourselves, that we're saying, okay, look, I did this, I did that, so that we can really expand or elevate this type of portfolio.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. I think a lot of students should have that in mind when writing their
Yeah.
essays, when preparing, when thinking about their plan. I think it's really important, and most students just don't care about it enough. And we've only talked up to now about acceptances and rejections. And it does happen that students get waitlisted or deferred to some colleges.
Yes.
And most people, or some people, I wouldn't say most, but some people actually call that just like a soft rejection. And I don't think it is. How would you say students could actually improve their chances? Are they actually just rejected in a soft way? What could you say about that?
About waitlisted, I don't necessarily call it like a soft rejection. It's just a way that, well, it depends on each college because every college is completely different. But it's kind of a way of saying, hey, are you still interested? We are interested in you, but we may not have enough space, or there were other applicants too. So if you tell us that you're still interested, we might consider, but then at the same time, it's an invitation for you to consider other options as well.
So is there an actual way that you can improve your chances after getting deferred or waitlisted? Or is it just, up to luck if they're going to choose you later or not?
So it could be, some colleges will ask for a letter of continued interest in a way of saying, hey, I'm still interested, but by the way, since I applied, these are additional aspects that I've done as well. Or we could reach out to the school and say, look, this is a reason why this person is recommended, little details like that, so that we can kind of maximize it. But the reality is many colleges, they do not have the time. They might be like, are you interested? Yes, no, submit. That's it.
Okay, well, in that case, it is what it is, and you just have to pray you get in.
You just have to, exactly, yeah. And then see what works. Yesterday was May 1st. I know of many cases where April 30th at night, they said, okay, you were waitlisted, now you're accepted. So it could be any time.
Yeah, you never know, right?
You never know. Yeah.
So with this and all the preparation that comes with the application itself, you've helped people on every single year of high school, or maybe even before that. So if you could say with a freshman right now, a high school freshman right now, and for 5 minutes, tell them everything that they should hear in those 5 minutes, what would you say?
Okay, so I was just speaking to a freshman about an hour ago. So what I would say is, let's get to work. This is not like an all-nighter type of test that it's like, okay, we can get it. Everything that we're doing is going to help you at the moment that we're writing or working on the application. So let's try to figure out what you're interested in. Let's try to figure out a passion project that we can create. Let's think of a story. Let's think of activities. Let's plan for your summers. And what makes you you? What makes you unique? What's your added value? What's like that secret sauce that you have? And we can start to discover it, because countless times I can speak to 10th graders, 11th graders, even 12th graders, and they may be like, I don't know where to begin. So like many things in life, it's a lot about reflection. So let's start to reflect. It's just an open invitation. Let's look at different majors. Let's look at different activities. And then with that, we'll start to focus. So first reflect, focus, and then we're going to execute once we're planning.
So from what I've seen of students that get into these top colleges that everyone dreams of, the perfect student, if you try to imagine it, for me, looks like someone that started in freshman year and has done everything or started one project right there and goes to all these internships and different summer programs at these colleges and tries to do a lot of different stuff at the beginning and then just goes deeper during high school. Is that like a
Yes.
good image?
Yes, absolutely. So the earlier, the better it works. At the same time, I've had students that they start later, but we still succeed. So every case is different. That's what we're looking for here.
So regarding the perfect image for an applicant, not everyone has the same opportunities and connections and people they know and the network and everything. What's an unfair advantage that someone that doesn't have all of these stuff could actually take advantage of to get into these top colleges?
So an unfair advantage, I would say it's friends and family. So I just have an 11th grader that got an amazing internship at an architectural firm because he wants to study architecture. And not many people have these connections. So that could happen. But at the same time, we can always pivot. If the person doesn't have friends or family that are in the industry, we can still find solutions. Sometimes schools are, they have connections with certain industries, companies, so that could work out.
So take advantage of your inner circle first, because
Yes.
maybe like your family may have some contacts or internships that they may give you, right? So there's all this work that you should be doing, so much work for a high schooler. So is it even worth it to shoot your shot and really try to work through these tough high school years to get into an Ivy League or a top 25 college? Is it really worth it?
I'm going to be a little bit unconventional. Yes and no. Let's start with the no. You might not necessarily be a good fit for an Ivy. So it's not just about aiming for an Ivy. Maybe your best fit is at a top 30 college or at a college that maybe you never imagined to. And that's perfectly fine. It's not just about the one that has the best image in the country. So first I could say, no, it's not worth it in that way. But is it worth it? Yes, because you do get to learn who you are. You understand what you're looking for, what your passions are. And then you really are just ultimately working on yourself. And this is going to help you whether you're applying for a job or anything else.
So that's really nice to hear. What I usually recommend people that go asking me questions about what should I do for applications and what should I work on, is it even worth it, where should I aim at? I just tell them to work on themselves and then worry about telling your story. Right?
Exactly. Absolutely.
Absolutely. So thank you. Thank you, Annabella. It was really nice to have you here. I know you can give a lot of value to other students, and you've done so right here in these 30 minutes or so. And for leaving the students with one thing in mind, what do you think is something that every single student should know, regardless on what the decision ends up being?
Everything, as cliche as it sounds, everything is meant to be. So if you get in and you say, in my gut feeling, I really want to go to the school, give it a try. And at the same time, there are always options. You might get to that school and you might say, maybe I want to transfer out, or maybe there's another plan B, and that's perfectly fine.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Lovely talking to you.
By the way, Annabella and I have been working together for over a year, helping students get accepted to a dream college. So if you want to connect directly with us and our incredible community for free, you can click the link in the description or the pinned comment. I'll be seeing you there.